1. The architecture of human socialization. The underlying structure of human socialization is built on shared, brief micro-exchanges that reinforce a collective identity. In contemporary culture, interpersonal spaces are frequently defined by mutual avoidance, a default state where individuals hide behind defensive postures, mobile devices, or ambient social shields like headphones. While conventional assumptions suggest that people safely isolate within their established familial or professional circles out of a genuine preference for solitude, empirical personality science reveals a striking miscalculation. 2. The illusion of mutual isolation. The social fabric relies on manners and structural politeness not as a superficial veneer, but as an essential mechanism for navigating interpersonal risk. When individuals default to isolation out of an unexamined fear of rejection, they sacrifice an essential source of daily psychological well-being. For public-facing figures or highly insulated professionals, the loss of these brief, anonymous exchanges often brings an unexpected sense of alienation. Human beings are inherently affiliative organisms who create artificial barriers to connection by avoiding interaction under the mistaken belief that others wish to be left alone. 3. Personality science and extroverted behavior. A foundational pillar of contemporary personality science is the strong, replicable correlation between extroverted behavior and subjective well-being. Across diverse global populations, the baseline correlation between extroversion and daily positive affect sits at approximately 0.5. To put this statistical significance into perspective, this is an exceptionally large effect size in behavioral science, directly comparable to the genetic correlation between the physical heights of biological fathers and sons. 4. Disproving the introvert-extrovert solitude myth. For decades, researchers hypothesized that introverts and extroverts simply possess different, equally optimized emotional baselines, meaning extroverts derive energy from crowds while introverts derive an equivalent volume of psychological energy from solitude. However, extensive data compiled by pioneering psychologists conclusively disproves this hypothesis. When individuals are tracked logistically across their days, both introverts and extroverts report significantly higher levels of positive mood when spending time with others than when they are alone. 5. Causal evidence of behavioral interventions. To establish causality regarding extroversion and happiness, researchers designed short and long-term behavioral interventions. In controlled laboratory experiments, participants were explicitly instructed to act either extroverted, outgoing, talkative, and assertive, or introverted, reserved, quiet, and kept to themselves during social encounters. The results demonstrate that acting extroverted significantly elevates positive mood across all personality types, including baseline introverts, while acting introverted lowers reported positive affect universally. 6. The porcupine trap of social avoidance. When these extroverted behavioral interventions are extended over a 2-week period, the positive affect meter shifts upward across the entire extroversion spectrum. This evidence suggests that the porcupines of our social world, individuals who keep their quills out and remain isolated, are not maximizing their happiness through independence. Instead, they are frequently trapped by suboptimal behavioral habits that constrain their daily emotional baseline, much like an individual who avoids physical exercise despite the undeniable health benefits of movement. 7. Cognitive miscalculations in social anxiety. For individuals navigating clinical or situational social anxiety, the primary obstacle to connection is a deeply ingrained cognitive miscalculation. Social anxiety causes people to wildly overestimate the likelihood of harsh rejection, hostility, or social failure. To alter these defensive behavioral patterns, clinical psychology relies heavily on real-world exposure therapy rather than cognitive simulation or imagined scenarios, forcing the nervous system to test its catastrophic predictions against real-world evidence. 8. Shifting beliefs through behavioral exposure. Behavioral interventions are highly effective because they do not simply dull the physiological edge of anxiety through desensitization. They function by fundamentally restructuring misplaced cognitive beliefs. By executing real-world social requests, an anxious individual gathers empirical data that directly disproves their internal expectation of hostility. This process proves that the social environment is vastly safer than predicted, allowing the nervous system to calm its hypervigilant defense mechanisms. 9. Jiang's experiment, 100 days of rejection. A compelling real-world demonstration of this mechanism is found in the work of entrepreneur Jia Jiang, who initiated a systematic 100 days of rejection experiment to immunize himself against refusal. Jiang committed to making one outlandish request to a stranger every day for 100 consecutive days, ranging from asking a bank security guard to borrow $100, to requesting a Krispy Kreme employee to craft donuts in the shape of the Olympic rings. Jiang failed to get rejected 100 days in a row because strangers repeatedly said yes. 10. The underestimation of compliance effect. Out of 106 documented requests, Jiang was accepted 51 times and rejected only 48 times, with genuine negativity occurring in only 7 encounters. Jiang cured his anxiety because real-world data forced him to abandon his pessimistic beliefs, proving a phenomenon known as the underestimation of compliance effect. When asked to predict how many strangers will agree to a request, individuals consistently overestimate the difficulty of obtaining compliance, failing to realize that helpers actually report feeling significantly happier after performing a kind act. 11. The nuance of interpersonal calibration. While outreach is empirically validated to improve well-being, social interaction remains a highly nuanced skill, requiring continuous calibration. A major driver of social avoidance is the fear of overstepping boundaries, specifically the anxiety of being perceived as intrusive, overbearing, or sticky. In psychological contexts, sticky behavior describes an individual who takes a casual, low-stakes friendly encounter and immediately presumes an accelerated unearned level of intimacy, bypassing standard social cues. 12. Nonverbal signaling and eye gaze. Interpersonal calibration relies heavily on nonverbal signaling, particularly eye gaze, which the human visual system is exquisitely attuned to tracking as a diagnostic tool for reading intent. An unyielding, intense gaze can be perceived as highly aggressive or socially inappropriate, inducing immediate discomfort in the recipient. Conversely, a completely averted gaze signals total emotional withdrawal or unavailability. A well-adjusted social skill set requires a dynamic, moving gaze that balances active attention with respectful space. 13. Testing ambient social barriers. Navigating these boundaries requires an understanding of gender differences and physical safety calculations, as a stranger's inability to read subtle cues can quickly be interpreted as a physical threat. Pro-social behavior does not mean ignoring these valid risk calculations, but rather treating internal social assumptions as probabilistic bets rather than definitive facts. Offering a low-stakes invitation to connect gives the other person a clear choice to engage or disengage, allowing a skilled communicator to recognize boundaries without persistence. 14. Radical acceptance versus parental expectations. The psychological courage required to challenge internal pessimistic expectations is equally vital when navigating complex family dynamics and parental expectations. In parental and clinical psychology, a profound shift occurs when caregivers move away from rigid, externally imposed milestones and embrace a framework of radical acceptance. This friction typically manifests when a child's developmental trajectory diverges sharply from societal norms or generational expectations, such as raising a child with Down syndrome. 15. Erasing shame in developmental diversities. Historically, developmental variations have occasionally been met with internalized parental shame or social isolation. However, extensive real-world case studies and interviews with thousands of families reveal that when parents challenge their initial diagnostic pessimism, they frequently discover that these children bring immense relational value. Individuals with Down syndrome often display a distinct prosocial profile characterized by an absence of typical social inhibition, acting as relational magnets within their families. 16. Recalibrating rigid societal paths. This necessity for radical acceptance extends seamlessly to neurotypical children who choose non-traditional career paths. In highly educated or high-status households, Parents often default to an unexamined assumption that a traditional academic route is the single valid path to fulfillment. Forcing a child down this predetermined road due to parental ego frequently causes intense alienation, whereas supporting a child's authentic alignment with specialized technical or trade programs consistently unlocks genuine engagement and pride. 17. Social modeling and behavioral habits. The transmission of healthy social behavior within human society relies fundamentally on social modeling, as human adults are constantly projecting interaction styles for their children and communities. To cultivate a healthier social ecosystem, we must pay meticulous attention to our daily micro-habits by designing simple, automated positive feedback loops, such as keeping our head up and offering genuine greetings to colleagues, service workers, and familiar faces along our daily path. 18. Conclusion: the soft barriers of connection. Ultimately, the collective data from thousands of behavioral experiments, clinical exposure therapies, and deep personal narratives converge on a singular conclusion. Human beings possess an extraordinary, largely untapped capacity for kindness, warmth, and cooperation. The structural barriers that keep us isolated from one another, the fear of rejection, the anticipation of awkwardness, and the assumption that others are indifferent, are rarely made of steel. More often than not, they are soft barriers, easily broken by a direct introduction or a momentary act of vulnerability.